Good day, everybody. My name is Carlos. I'm your co-host for My Life Without Limits podcast, and this is our first episode from this new 2023 year. But before we start and have introduced our wonderful guest today, I want to introduce my co-host again, that she's stick with me for another year.
Here.
Thankfully she hasn't got sick of me, which is good. It's very,
We're in
very
two
good for
separate
that.
rooms. It's fine.
We're in two separate rooms, two separate walls, so we can put up with each other. That's kind of that's kind of a good thing. Welcome, Leah. Welcome to 2023. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. I'm very excited about this. This is a really, really, really good, perfect one to start our year off.
It is a really good
very exciting. Yeah.
The start of 2023 year. This kind of sounds like you talked to Santa Claus and you brought this present to us, which is pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome that way. So Leah, I wanna let you introduce our two wonderful guests, because if I say you talked to Santa Claus and you brought this present to us, so please introduce our wonderful guest and to our audience, which is awesome. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got Sean and Kevin here calling in all the way from Toronto, which is great. We love having everybody from across Canada joining us. So I think we'll just really dive in. And Sean, I'll get you to start. Just tell us about yourself and just anything you want to tell everybody. And then we'll go over to Kevin, and then we'll get into the amazing project that you guys worked on.
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having us. I'm really excited to be here. I guess for me, I'm a disabled content creator with cerebral palsy. I graduated from Humber College with a diploma in broadcasting. And so I've really been around the arts scene in terms of like the work that I find myself doing, particularly around life with living with a disability. That seems to be where I tend to land on things. And so that's when I got the chance to connect with Kevin through another writer we have on the show, and that's how we started working on this project.
Awesome. Really excited to hear about it. Kevin from Longhope Media, correct?
That's right. Hi. Yeah. So glad to be here. My name is Kevin Wallis. I am co-founder of Longhope Media based in Toronto. Mainly a comedy production company, specializing in TV and some streaming content. And we actually are a fairly new company. Started in the fall of 2020, because what better thing to do in the middle of a pandemic?
Right.
Start a new production company, you know? My background, though, I worked many years for a show called Royal Canadian Air Farce.
Right.
I'm a showrunner and a writer for that, and on other projects, including Second Gen, which shared on OMNI. Right now, actually, I'm calling from the beautiful studios in Oakville, Ontario, where we actually shot the show, which we'll be talking about soon. You're My Hero, because I'm on the second season of a sketch series right now called Abroad. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. When I don't know, I'm throwing this in here. It's not really about me, but in my early 20s, I thought maybe I was going to be like a makeup artist or something. And I had just had an opportunity to go on set, and there was a show here in Edmonton called It May Contain Nuts. It was like a comedy show.
It May Contain Nuts. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah. So I just went and did a day on set just to watch what they do. And it was really fun. I was all excited because they had a craft table there, and was like, oh, fun. Get to do all this. Yeah, it was cool.
We're known for our craft table, which for everybody is like a word to say like our food. And really that's what most of my job entails is talking about what's on the craft table and
Yes,
eating the
exactly.
snack off of the craft table.
Yes, that's right.
That's awesome.
And Carlos and I were talking yesterday too about showrunner. What is a showrunner? Is it like a producer or a little different?
It is. I would describe it like the lead creative producer.
Okay.
Like as a writer myself, I'm kind of like seen as like the guy who makes the ultimate creative decisions across the board for the show that will
Okay.
help. If somebody wants to know, well, is this wardrobe or that wardrobe the best? I'll be the final decision on that.
Yeah.
But it was very unique on this project because it was Sean's voice, and Sean
Mhm.
created it, which we're excited to talk about today.
Yes, very excited about this. So yeah, Sean, how did
Super
you
excited.
come up with this idea? Is it just real life experience that, you thought? Because I always talk with Carlos, I'm like, do you imagine camera following you around as you're navigating the wintry city of Edmonton and you're with your crutches and trying to get around? It's a real would be a real eye opener. So
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, I thought I had it bad in Toronto, but I can imagine Edmonton would be a
it's
whole
terrible.
another level of just disaster to try and
Yes.
navigate in the winter. But I think at a certain point, I realized that, like, hey, all these situations that I find myself a lot of times unwillingly, and like whether it be not being able to access a ramp or just like uh people having the most outlandish questions and feeling as if they can just come up to you on the street
Yeah.
and ask you, or just not having autonomy over your own being.
Yeah.
I I I figured out that a lot of that could be funny if we could frame it in the right way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's where it came from for me, and also I wanted something that was authentic to the experience of living with a disability, that wasn't it wasn't overcoming like obstacles, it wasn't seen as any sort of inspiration. It really focused on the humor that can develop from just trying to live your everyday life in a world that wasn't necessarily designed for you. So I think that's really where the inspiration for You're My Hero came from, I think.
You didn't want to get into the inspiration porn business, as they
Yeah,
call it.
I think that was really one of the first and earliest discussions that I had with Kevin and my other writer, Cassidy Siviera, was, listen, I want to make this a real thing. We want to avoid it being inspiration porn, because you know we've all seen that countless times, and it's about time for something else to kind of be highlighted. So
Yeah.
I think that's something that I'm really proud of about this show, is that it kind of it stays away from that, but it also sort of like makes fun of that at the same time, I think.
Yeah, I think it's good to have humor along with that, because
Very
then
much.
people are more apt to sit and learn about it more and watch, if and I think it makes people more comfortable, because I think people get really uncomfortable when it comes to disabilities. And if you put a humorous spin on there, maybe it makes them a little more comfortable with
I
it.
think that's that's the hope, is eventually just put it out there so it becomes like a part of the normal conversation, right? And then
Yeah.
it just becomes like a thing that everyone is aware of, but isn't any sort of like, it's not outwardly different to them because they've been exposed to it, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's really great. And then Kevin, had you ever done anything like this before, like work with anybody with disabilities, or was this new?
No, this was new for the company. And I mean, I worked on the Easter Seals telethon years ago on CBC, but nothing so much and all encompassing. And it really was, when I was sent the script, I knew nothing about it. It was just a script sent to me, say, hey, read this. I had no notion. I went in and I read it, and I was like, this is one of the funniest pilots I've ever read. And I thought it did a lot of things right, where Sean hit it right on the nose, where yes, it's a show about disability, but he said this is a show first about friends. And it's through the lens of somebody with a disability. But I was like, well, that's really interesting to me, and that's why it felt so fresh and so funny. And there is this notion, we've talked a lot about it too, of how to give permission to people who are able-bodied like myself to laugh at things, where now we're all hypersensitive in a good way, to be, I think, more caring and more thoughtful of other people. But then it's almost swung so far where we're like, we like, you can't make fun of anything like this now, because you shouldn't. And Sean says, yes, I want to. And if Sean says he can, I'm like, I will fight all the way to the end of the earth to make sure you can laugh at yourself and put it out there for people. And it was a very interesting challenge, but we had great production partners in CBC who were with us all the way of saying, go for it, go as deep as possible, push the envelope as much as you guys want, because it's coming from Sean. And Sean, one of the very first things he said was about people coming up and just asking you any question and feeling like a bit invasive. But you know what? The first thing Sean said to me was, you ask me anything, and like, let's mine it together, which I guess in that way, talking about giving permission to laugh about something too, I think even in the opening scene of the series, Sean's character is doing a talk to kids, and he tells some very hard, real truths to them. And that's our kind of the audience window into this world of being like, hey, I'm laughing at myself. I also got some really great jokes though. Come with me for this ride along, where you're going to laugh, and hey, maybe you might learn something. But I love with comedy when you're not really actively thinking about learning, because I find it breaks down those barriers, and people are much more open to receiving a life lesson in a way if it's like coded with comedy, quite frankly.
And I think what Sean is saying and what you're saying, Kevin, it's a great point, because I always talk about with my mom about laughing about my own disability, but society in general is making disability as, you cannot make a joke about this and that because it's politically incorrect. But you're allowed to, because the more fun you have laughing at your disability, the better you're gonna live your life. That's the way I see it. So I am really looking forward to this project, because I want to show it to people, and I want to say to people, this is the way you're supposed to live, and to laugh about it. And if you laugh about it, we're not gonna take it too hard. And people who are taking it too hard, I think it's gonna be an eye opener for a lot of people to have a little bit of a layback, kind of life. In a way.
I really hope so. And just to finish it off, like, it's really interesting to see some of the subject matter we're dealing with, because we deal with some really big topics. Like, we deal with the R word, which is a really heavy word, but this was a word that Sean's like, I want to address this directly, because it's not like, just because we know it's not okay to say it doesn't mean it doesn't happen all the time to me still. And I said, wow, like, if you're comfortable with going for it, let's go for it, and let's show really what happens. But still, at the end of the day, this show, what I really love about it is, it's, yes, a disabled person in the middle of it, but he also is just an average guy who has average life problems too.
Yeah.
He has his special problems of dealing with disability. Yes, his, not the typical things that a lot of people who are able-bodied see every day, but he also is just dealing with the friendship. And I love that because Sean, you should talk about like how it's like, well, yeah, but disabled people don't have normal friendships. And he's like, that's so not fair to say in the real world.
Yeah.
But we don't see that a lot.
That's very true. You're absolutely right. I mean, Carlos, you go have drinks with friends, and if anything's going to stop you, it's going to be the venue you're going to that's not
Yeah.
accessible. It's nothing to do with anything else. And so I think that'll be great to see. Was it having somebody in it with a disability on set? Because we know we need to see more representation on TV, and I don't know why people shy away from it. And I don't know if they think, oh, how are you going to get around? There's, wires everywhere. But how did you find, being on a set and how making it accessible? Like, was it pretty simple just to accommodate?
I think that is what I hope the other side of the show will do. There's the front forward to the audience, just the general public that will just laugh. And then there's the other side that we're trying to push out right now for the industry side of how to deal with disability. And there's actually a disabled screen office opening up in Canada officially on, I believe, at the beginning of April. And we've been talking to them. And I if there's any producers listening, it's just have to treat it like another line item in the budget, just like dealing with COVID. Okay, we have to deal with COVID. We had to buy more masks. And for us, though, again, it was Sean being so open, being like, ask me anything. And here's what I can tell you, too, that might be a bit different than just another actor being on set. But here's what I would say at the end of the day, who also came to set knowing all his lines and had the least screw-ups? Sean. And I think there's also that just because somebody's disabled doesn't mean they're going to pull a production down because this or that reason. But also we felt very confident knowing that going in because we had so many talks with Sean, with not only myself, the creative, but on the production side, having these little conversations like, okay, how long would it take for you just to have a break? Let's talk about that, and really laid it out. So that when we went to set, there were no real bumps that I would say. Sean, what did you think?
I would agree with that. I think that for us, I think we both agree on this. Is it was the first time for everyone in that situation. Really, just dealing with navigating a set and navigating schedules, because traditionally in TV schedule is super tight and everything has to be you gotta get done what you have to get done, or you're not gonna get it done, right? But I think for us there was an understanding of, well, if we have to put in a little cushion here, then that's just gotta be what it's gotta be. And hopefully other our hope is that this show opens the door to show other production companies and people in the industry that you can make a show that's also very good and very funny, but also have a mindset that's open to changing stuff around based on what you're given and what's in front of you.
And behind the scenes too, right, Sean? I don't know if you want to talk about, I think Greg, our director, would be fine to mention this because he does openly speak about it as well, but it was important to have representation behind the camera as well.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so important for us, was having Greg and I together. Greg has type 1 diabetes, and so he has been really kind of dealing with trying to bring his career like to where he wants to get it. But the way the industry has been in the past, he's really had to like navigate his schedule with the shooting schedules, and
Yeah.
TV is long hours, right?
Mhm.
And if you rely on shots of insulin every couple hours or whatever it is, but you're in the middle of a shot that you have to get done, or it's not going to get done,
Mhm.
then you either have to make a sacrifice for the show
Mhm.
or a sacrifice to your health. And knowing Greg, if he's being put in that situation, he is gonna put the sacrifice on himself.
Mhm.
So I think for us, the key was to give Greg the space to not have to make those tough choices, and make sure that he had time as well to just go away, get a snack, and do what he had to do so that he was at the best of his ability as well.
Mhm. And that's great because if you don't do that, he can put his health at risk, right?
Yeah.
So it's a good thing that you guys make that adjustment, and I think that's a good teaching for other production companies because, for example, if I wanted to be in a production place where I wanted to be behind the scenes and I needed to take time for moving around and they don't give me that opportunity, I can hurt myself by falling, right? Or anyone else who
Yeah.
might be wanted to do that. So I think this is a good lesson for that as well. So thank you for that. So Kevin, you were gonna say something? Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, it was real eye opener for me another way too with Greg Jeffs because he is in I guess the term is invisible disability
Yes.
because
Yes.
type 1 diabetes, and people I've been in rooms with him where it's like, well, you're not disabled, and he's like, thank you very much for telling me that my diabetes might not kill me one day, like thanks for knowing more than me. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's another level of disability that I
Yes.
was
Yeah.
exposed to, that I was like, wow, like having that and I saw it firsthand.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great the way our director Greg handled it too, because we also had another director with us who could always spell off if he needed to take a break, and I would also be there too, so if he ever needed to, he could step off set and I would just be able to fill in for him. But that's not built into most places, because it'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, you just need a break. Oh, I'm sure you just need a break for no. It's like, well, yeah, if he doesn't have a snack, he could go in a diabetic coma. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but people scoff at that because it's this industry too. It's the long hours. It's like it's almost a badge of honor. Like, oh, you worked 12 hours. I worked 18 hours yesterday.
Yeah. Competition. Yeah.
And we're really trying to change that too, because
Yeah.
you can get your day and not kill the crew and kill the cast.
Right.
But it's tough because on our budgets, it's hard to make the days if you don't have long days. And that's a lot of the push pull. Yeah.
Yes.
So how long was it? How long was the project in total for you guys? Like, how long did it take to finish it? To finish the project?
Well, we're still going now, so
Oh, you're
we're
still
in
going.
post actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But
All the
But the recording
yeah,
part of
I
it,
mean,
sorry.
yeah. So the recording part took place over 3 weeks.
Sorry.
So it was a 15 shoot day to get 7 episodes,
Mhm.
which is quite an aggressive schedule, but we really mapped it out well in order to do that. And really Sean's been working on the project for a long time, so I would say relatively quickly. But also, Sean, you might want to talk through that
On
leading
his
up to
end.
us. On your end, you've been gestating on this for a long time, right?
Yeah, I think in total it was about 5 years from when I wrote the first draft to when we finally put it on film or
Mhm.
on digital, I guess, in this
Yeah.
case. But yeah, it was a long process, and I had to give a lot of credit to my other co-writer Cassidy, because they really came in when I was in a place where I wasn't sure what I was, if I still wanted to keep going with it because it had been so long. And then, it's getting fresh eyes on the project, and they really elevated it to a level, and they also really energized my belief in the project as well. So then I was like, yeah, maybe this is possible. And so yeah, together we uh looked for a producer, and then just when we were about ready to pack it in, Chelsea was like, well, why don't I give it a cousin, see what cousin thinks? And then we sent it off, crossed our fingers, and then cousin got back to us right away. So that was yet another like jolt of belief and energy, and just having people who believed in the project, I think was really the key. And like I can't say enough about the writers room that we put together, like just some of the things that we can come up with, but also just like it's really cool that like a team of the three of us came up with this whole season, and then the crew, the great crew and the great cast that we assembled was able to like take the words from the page and just elevate it again. And so it's kind of wild to think about, honestly. I was telling Kevin while we were shooting, because there's one scene where you see my character getting dropped off at his workplace, and we actually show the lift, the ramp being lowered in the wheelchair van, and my character comes out of a wheelchair van. And that was one of those moments where I was like, whoa, like it's such a small moment, but it's one of those moments that you do not see on television. And that was the moment where I was like, I think we're getting to where I wanted to get to, because that's the type of storytelling that isn't being seen right now on screen that I really wanted to explore. So
I love that. Yeah, that's great. And did you always know that you were going to be cast, or did you
That
always
was
kind
my
of
question.
maybe
That was
was
my
it?
question.
Yeah.
I
And
was
like,
looking at
'cause
the
I
same
mean,
question.
with broadcasting, you're obviously you're not shy to, doing what you do, but then acting can be different. Or did it feel natural because it really was based on you? So did it make it a little bit more easier?
yeah, well, I have to say that I come from an acting family as well. My mother is actually in the show, but she does not play my mom.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, but so I've always been around it. Uh, I've always been around it, and like it was one of those things where I was like, I'd like to be in acting at some point, but the way it was shaking out for me, a lot of those roles for people with disabilities don't come along very often.
Yes.
So it's almost like if you want one, you're gonna have to
Yeah.
write it yourself.
Yourself.
So yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's that
think-
that way with so many adaptive equipment. You see parents are the ones that are creating them, or Halloween costumes and stuff for their kids. It's always the parents because they're like, well, nobody else is doing this, so they end up doing it themselves, and that's exactly what it is. You just had to dive in and write it yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to see it. So it comes out in the spring.
March 24th on CBC Gem. All 7 episodes are available at once, so everyone wants to binge watch
Perfect.
these days. So
Love doing that. And
Binge
CBC
it
Gem,
all.
I mean, the name is perfect because they do have a lot of gem, like the shows on there that sometimes people, I think, need to see them more. I think that they have a lot of stuff, and they,
Oh, yeah.
like you said, with them telling you, push the envelope, do what you need to do. That's what they do. And like, I think it's really great that you guys were connected with them to help get
Yeah, it
this.
was to be honest, one of the fastest green lights for a show I've ever had. From when they brought it to me, I was a long lead up for Sean, but when it was brought to me and my co-founder Lucy, it was a very short turnaround from talking to CBC, who historically have a great relationship with. But then there's the other side, which not a lot of people know with Canadian television and the industry. It's like it's a lot of having to apply to other funds. So
Yeah.
there was a path towards production, but it required us talking to getting other funding from different government bodies, the Bell Fund, Ontario Creates, the TELUS Mental Health Fund, that
Right.
it all lined up for us in a very short, within a year, to go from,
Wow.
hey, let's pitch it, to actually
great.
getting it greenlit, to then being on camera in the summer of last August.
Mhm.
Was incredibly fast. So much so I was like, Sean, we gotta pinch ourselves, because before you know it's gonna be over, and it would be like, was that all a dream? But
Yeah.
it really was quite remarkable, the way it came together. And it's again a testament to the creative, where it was so unique and so funny. And some people had said to us, well, I don't know, can you do this? And I'm like, talk to Sean.
Right. Ian, I'd love
And then
that.
wow, a lot of people, and who all the people say, I don't know if you can do this. We're all able-bodied people like myself saying that.
Yeah.
And then they talk to Sean, and then they zip up pretty quickly,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he says it. He says he's a better speaker than I am. So I'm like, thank you, Sean, because that called a lot of ideas. And again, it goes back to the people being so sensitive. It comes from the right place, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like, but let people make comedy for themselves.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
So, John, I don't want to go ahead and spoil the show, because I think people should watch the show, and I think people should enjoy the show, because it sounds like a cool, great show that I'll definitely gonna binge watch it, I believe, with some
Mhm.
popcorn and something. But anyways, what I wanted to talk to you about is I wanted to go back a little bit on the R word, because the other day we were having a discussion, Lee and I, with another guest of ours. I think she's from Red Deer or Edmonton. That we're talking about the different wording that people are using nowadays. With some people use the R word, but it's incorrectly used. Some people use the word disable, which I personally have do not like, but I started to like, because some people are starting to use it. So everybody has different opinions about all the different wordings of what to say. So I wanted to know, what do you think about the R word, and what do you say to people when they use it in front of you, whether it's people that you encounter every day or people that you encounter as new?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the R word is wholly unacceptable on like various levels. It's not, I can't even, when people say it, it's like, you can sort of hear it in my voice now. Like I have issues articulating
Mhm.
how much the word bothers me, especially just how flippantly people used to throw it around at people
Mhm.
and like just out in the open, just like but the yeah, that word is absolutely wholly unacceptable. I think I think this is an interesting discussion about the word disabled though,
Mhm.
Mhm.
because that is a word that I prefer, and my view on it is unless I'm shooting lasers out of my eyes, then that's when I become like differently able, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
When,
Yeah.
when I start becoming an X-Men, when I
Yeah.
go to the X-Men Academy, that's when
You're a
the,
mutant. Yeah.
yeah. But for me, I think disabled definitely sort of is where I land on it. Although
Mhm.
I am hearing uh wheelchair user. I like wheelchair user or
Mhm.
uh assistive device
Mhm.
Yeah.
user.
Mhm.
Um I think that is kind of cool that that's coming in.
I
Mhm.
think so
Um
too. Yeah. Yeah. Getting people used to saying accessible washroom,
Accessible,
accessible parking rather than, yeah,
handicap parking, and
handicapped. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's not
It's
hard for
good
people
because
to learn.
I started to feel that started to get used to the word disabled. I didn't used to it. I didn't like or developmental disability. I don't like that word. You know, there's some words that I just don't. I'm not. I wasn't. I wasn't really comfortable with it. But the word disabled, people started using it more and more and more. That started to feel you started to own it. You know, in a way, you start owning something like that. So it's kind of started to get on good terms with me. But I wanted to know what you think about that,
Yeah.
and same with the R word. And because for some people would be offended or would be not good, for some people are okay with that, and that's a good thing to do. Of course, the R word is globally not good
Yeah.
because it's a global word that is not used, or the C word for the disability community might not be still a good word to use, right? So
I
Yeah.
mean, one thing I will say is like uh, there is something to be said, or at least when I was younger, there is something to be said about taking back the word or whatever.
mhm,
Mhm.
When I was younger, I would use the C word in reference to myself,
mhm,
and then
Mhm.
I kind of took a look one day, and it was like, why, like, why would I do? And it's also kind of a thing where it's like that's just lazy. Like,
mhm.
if you want to make a joke, make a better joke than that. Like,
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's so true. I even call people out when they just add the word like tard to something else. Like even when people
Mm.
talk about liberals, they call them libtards. And I'm always like, I know what you mean. Like I know what you're implying here. So I always call people out when they kind of add it. And it's like you don't want to say it because you know it's wrong, but yet you're toying with the idea. So yeah, I love calling people out all the time for using.
Now, Kevin, how do you feel about movies nowadays, or TV productions, or that are still using the R word? How would you educate the TV productions or the TV directors of avoiding those type of productions? I mean, it comes to mind the movie Napoleon Dynamite, where they use that on script, right? Where I thought it was funny at first, but when I heard that word, I was like, okay, I own this movie. It's going to the garbage. You know what I mean? Because of that particular part of the script where I don't like that, so it's going to the garbage, right? How do you educate that in the production companies nowadays?
Well, let me speak on behalf of the whole industry now. No, it's I guess it's a challenge, and it comes to mind like there's always pushback on like the latest Quentin Tarantino movie that always says N-word riddled throughout it,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
there was weigh-in from the community about that too. And I guess it's like I can say from our context of You're My Hero, we use the R word because it was in a way a teachable moment, but it was for Sean to showcase how from the other side of showing how visceral, how hurtful that comment is. But then we flip it on its head and it makes it really funny. So it's it could be very dark, a very dramatic scene, but it's actually one very funny scene because the way that, and I think it's very important when you're doing comedy, when you're dealing with sensitive topics like this, where in the end, the guy who said it, he got his just desserts. Like there was consequences for him, and it wasn't just using it and it just moves on. But like I think it's a very tough thing because I think about back to like just even the 90s. That word was just used as that's bad.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
as a flippant comment. And I think as a guy growing up in Burlington in the 90s, not being exposed to that was a word that was used all the time, and none of us knew the consequences of it. And I guess it's like, now how do you deal with that word? Are people using it out of ignorance? I think some people might be still, but I think it's harder and harder to say you don't know because it's getting out there so much to the average person. That's not a word you use, just like other words.
Yes.
So please grow people. And I hope that's what people will understand when they see the show. It's like, please grow beyond that word now.
Yeah, exactly. My 12-year-old will watch a movie from the 90s or something, and if they say the word, she'll look at me and I'm like, it's not okay, but they were learning still back then. Like you have to remember they were learning, and they probably know now that, whoops, we shouldn't have, used that, but
Hopefully,
it's done.
yes.
What's done is done. They can't go back and change it. Well, maybe they could, I don't know, but yeah, so I think but I just like knowing that she already knows. If she hears it, she's just like immediately like, oh my God, shocked.
But Carlos, did you see my face when you said I don't like the term disabled? And my whole face just dropped. I was like, great, all I've used is that on your podcast.
No. But
like,
what?
oh, no.
Correction. I didn't used to like it until I started to realize that people are using it more and more, right? And so you can, because I used to say, just to clarify what I used to say instead of that word, I used to say Sean lives with a disability or Sean has a disability, right? Instead of being disabled, or Carlos has a disability or Carlos lives with a disability. But I understand now that some people, to make it easier, could say Carlos is disabled or Carlos is or Carlos or Sean is disabled, right? To make it easier, right? Or to make it easier. So it started to feel more comfortable now, just because in my younger age, my dad used that word a lot, and I didn't really enjoy it. And same with, hopefully my dad doesn't feel bad about this. But but then I realized that people are using it more. Like there's somebody like Sean who are using it, yourself who are using it. Another writer who has a disability, who's Shane Borska, he's using it in the US, right? So there's a lot of people who are using it, and now I'm feeling more comfortable towards it. Sorry, Sean, you were gonna say something?
If I could just also add, the character who says the R word, the actor Christian Smith, is like the nicest, most like genuine human being in the world. And we actually had a nice conversation, and Christian came to me and he's like, I don't know, man, like I don't know like I don't necessarily feel comfortable because
Yeah.
also his I think you'd be okay with his brother-in-law has Down syndrome as well.
Mhm.
So that's another added layer for him. But
Mm.
I the way I told him was what we're doing is we're really highlighting how that word still does get used
Yeah. Yeah.
when referring to people with disabilities,
Mhm.
and how awful it is that people use it, and then eventually it's not as if my character just like lets it go.
Right.
There is some uh consequence
Mhm.
for that
Teaching
word
moment.
being used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. No, we're so excited. We'll definitely be sharing it everywhere where everybody can watch it.
Absolutely.
March 24th, was it?
That's
March
right. Yeah.
24th on CBC Gem. So excited. But before we wrap it up, we just have one more thing to chat about, and that is Life Without Limits. And so, Sean, like, what does living life without limits mean to you? And do you feel that you live your life without limits?
That's when you initially when we connected about doing this podcast, and
Mhm.
you said we just have one question that we end every podcast with. It
Mhm.
took me a while to ponder what that means, and I think I've come up with that it means that I have access to participate in life
Mhm.
with the same footing, like with the same chances and the same footing uh as uh able-bodied people, in the sense that
Yeah.
I'm looking at barrier-free to like access, barrier-free to like accessing textbooks or books or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Also, one of the things that I really enjoy doing is going to live comedy. But Toronto, a lot of the live comedy has like 14 steps going down, or like one big step to get in, and it's not really set up in a way that's feasible for people in wheelchairs to be able to access.
Yeah.
So I think I think and again also the show does highlight just the mundane stuff about getting out of bed in the morning. Like
Mhm.
that's
Right.
an entire process that like you have to rely on other people
Mhm.
who
Yeah.
may or may not show up. Like, so I think some consistency within the systems that we had to live in is really important to a barrier-free life. And to actually answer your question, I don't think I am currently living one. Like I'd like to live one eventually, and I'm striving to live one.
Mhm.
But I think it takes uh, a lot of people to ensure that people can live one.
Yeah.
A lot of it is systematic.
Yes.
So
Yeah, absolutely. It's
That's a-
limits that, the world is putting on you, not you putting on yourself, for sure.
That's a
Yeah.
fantastic answer, Sean.
Yeah.
And as Leah always says, this world is not made for us. So that's
Yeah.
what
It's
she
not,
always says. But
it's not made for
we gotta
wheels,
we
like
gotta
you
start
guys put
putting
it too.
a little bit of a green on it. What about you, Kevin? Do you think you live your life without limits?
Look, as a white guy from Burlington, Ontario, it's hard not to live your life without limits.
Right.
But
Yep.
but what I'll say maybe this to any creators out there that might want to pursue like a career in the arts, do what Sean did, which is don't try to compromise your writing because you think people might not want to hear about how I live or something. Because for me, like what Sean was talking about being stuck in bed, that ended up being a whole episode about his character being stuck in bed because nobody could go get him. And that's what makes the show so unique. So I would say, if anybody's out there, don't shy away from, if you're comfortable, that is to talk about your own life. And Sean was very open book of being like, because often we would have the writing and be like, well, this horrible thing happened to me today. Let's make something funny out of it.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes Sean so amazing. Is he can do that.
Yeah.
But if you're comfortable and you can put it to paper or if you're writing a song or whatever, and you can push it out there are people out there, I think like myself, that sat up in his chair right away, was like, what is the script? This is so different. It's so funny. So don't shy away, because I think in the industry, people are like, oh, nobody wants to hear about me and what happens to me. So because it's different and I shouldn't write that, because that's what makes it so stand out and unique. So I kind of diverge there, but that's just my little tidbit for anybody.
No, I love that, Carlos, when you were leaving that one day and your closet door fell and then you could leave your apartment because you were stuck. That would have been a great one.
Yeah, that was that was an experience in itself, like a life and death situation, which if I didn't move this way, the door could have fallen on my head. But it was funny at the end of the day, because you can't get out, but you gotta make something out of it, right? Instead of just saying, oh, that's you gotta laugh at it, and you got. But yeah, it's the experiences that happen when the door comes down and you can't move in. There's no way you can. That's real life, for sure.
That's real life.
Yeah.
This was so great. I am, again, so excited to watch, and we'll put all the information in the show notes and all over our social media for both the podcast and Cerebral Palsy Alberta, and get the word out, and maybe we'll have a viewing party at the office here. We have a TV.
That'll be awesome.
Have a viewing party.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
It's work,
Totally.
Ordering some lunch and just binge. That would be really fun. No, definitely. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank both of you. Thank you so much for taking the time and coming to the show, because I know both of you guys are pretty busy, and to have this time with us, it's just been a pleasure in itself. And all of our wonderful listeners, please make sure to check this wonderful TV show that's come up in March, and make sure you check the notes. Make sure you follow these two wonderful people. And if you are wanting to be a part of this wonderful podcast, please make sure to reach out to myself and Leah at My Life Without Limits podcast, and we will be more than happy to have you on our show as well. Thank you once again, Sean and Kevin, and have yourself, all of you, a wonderful, wonderful day. And please remember to live your life without limits. Take care.